Nobody drove to Kmart for the food, but somehow the cafeteria line was always longer than the checkout line. You walked in for tube socks and a garden hose, and somewhere between aisle 9 and the layaway counter, the smell hit you. Grease on a flat top, coffee on a burner since morning, soup behind the counter in a steel well, always simmering. Number 14 on this list kept families coming back for a plate that cost less than a gallon of gas. And number 3 served more repeat customers than some standalone diners in the same shopping plaza. These meals were never fancy. They were never supposed to be. Here are 25 iconic Kmart cafeteria meals that vanished forever. Number 25, the grilled cheese sandwich, 2 slices of white bread, a layer of processed American cheese, and a flat-top grill that had been running since the store opened. The woman behind the counter pressed it with a spatula until both sides turned the color of a new penny. It came on a paper plate with a pickle spear and sometimes a handful of chips. Kids ordered it because they wanted it. Adults ordered it because it reminded them of the one their mother made on snow days. You could eat it standing up by the lunch counter or carry it on a tray to one of those bolted-down seats near the window. It was warm, it was fast, and it disappeared from every Kmart cafeteria without anyone noticing it was gone. Number 24, the hot dog on a steamed bun. It sat in a warmer under a heat lamp, rolling slowly on those little metal rods. The bun came from a bag, steamed soft in a compartment underneath. You grabbed a tray, pointed at the one you wanted, and the attendant dropped it into a paper sleeve. Mustard, ketchup, and relish sat in squeeze bottles at the condiment station. No one asked what brand the hot dog was. No one cared. The whole thing cost pocket change, and it tasted exactly the same in every Kmart from Topeka to Tampa. Your father bought one while your mother was still 3 aisles deep in the fabric section. By the time she came back with her cart, he had already finished and was pretending he had not eaten anything. Number 23, the tuna salad sandwich. It sat in a refrigerated case near the register, wrapped in cellophane with a small sticker showing the date. Chunky tuna mixed with mayonnaise, a little celery, salt, and pepper, all pressed between 2 slices of soft white bread. Some locations served it on a croissant, but most stuck with plain bread and a side of coleslaw in a small plastic cup. The tuna salad was made every morning in the back, scooped into portions, and wrapped before the store opened. By 2 in the afternoon, they were usually gone. It was the kind of sandwich you ate without thinking about, the kind that filled you up and left you satisfied on a tight budget. Retirees ordered it with a cup of coffee and sat in the cafeteria reading the newspaper for an hour. Before I go further, for the folks who want more old-fashioned recipes like the ones in this video, I put together the Vintage Recipe Guide. It is a cookbook with dozens of classic recipes all in one place. You can find it on my website, vintagelifestyleusa.com. I will not mention it again. If you want it, it is there. Now, back to the list. Number 22, spaghetti with meat sauce. A mound of soft noodles sitting in a shallow bowl with a ladle of thick red sauce poured over the top. The meat was ground beef, browned and stirred into a tomato base that had been simmering all morning. Some locations added a breadstick. Others gave you a dinner roll wrapped in foil. Either way, you ate it with a plastic fork that bent if you twirled too hard. Nobody called it Italian. Nobody had to. For a family of 4 killing time at Kmart on a Saturday afternoon, it was a hot meal with no wait and no tip. Children dragged noodles across the table and nobody got upset about it. Number 21, the chef salad. Iceberg lettuce, sliced ham, turkey, a hard-boiled egg, shredded cheese, and a tomato wedge, all arranged in a clear plastic dome. The dressing came in a sealed packet, usually ranch or Thousand Island. It was the meal people ordered when they wanted to feel responsible. Wives picked at it while their husbands ate a cheeseburger 2 seats over. The lettuce was always cold, the egg always slightly gray around the yolk. You could see that clear dome from across the cafeteria, catching the light. You either wanted it or you walked right past. What the Kmart cafeteria really sold was time. Not food, time. A mother with 3 children and a cart full of layaway pickups needed 20 minutes to herself, and the cafeteria gave her that. A retiree with nowhere to be could sit with a cup of coffee and a grilled cheese and watch the store move around him for the better part of an hour. No one asked him to leave. No one checked on his table. The food was beside the point, and everyone behind that counter understood it. The prices stayed low because the cafeteria was never a profit center. It was a reason to stay in the building. The longer you stayed, the more you bought on the way out. Every department store in America knew this. Kmart just did it with cheaper plates. Number 20. Chicken noodle soup. It came from a commercial pot and was ladled into a styrofoam cup or a shallow bowl, depending on the location. Wide egg noodles, small pieces of chicken, carrots cut into coins, and a broth that tasted like it had been simmering in the same pot for a decade. There was a soup station in most Kmart cafeterias with 2 or 3 options rotating through the week. Chicken noodle was always one of them. You did not order it because you craved it. You ordered it because you were cold or tired or waiting for a prescription at the pharmacy counter and you needed something warm in your hands. A pack of saltine crackers came with it, still sealed in the wrapper. Number 19. The Turkey Club sandwich. This was the one that separated the Kmart cafeteria from the snack bar down the road. 3 layers of toasted white bread, sliced turkey, bacon, lettuce, tomato, and mayonnaise, cut into triangles and held together with frilled toothpicks. It sat taller on the plate than anything else on the menu, and it looked like it belonged in a real diner. The turkey was pre-sliced deli meat, the same kind you could buy by the pound at the store's own deli counter. The bacon was cooked in batches on a sheet pan, sometimes crisp, sometimes limp. The toast varied by location. Some places used thick bread. Others used whatever came off the delivery truck that morning. But none of that mattered, because the Turkey Club was the prestige order. It was the meal people bought when they were treating themselves. A woman shopping alone on her birthday. A grandfather taking his grandchild to Kmart for the first time and wanting to make it feel like an occasion. You sat down with that triple-stacked sandwich and felt like you had made a real decision, not just pointed at whatever was closest to the register. It cost more than everything else on the cafeteria menu, but more was still not much. Most people ate every crumb. Some still remember the toothpicks more than the sandwich, those little plastic swords in red or green that children pocketed and pretended were weapons all the way through the parking lot. Number 18. Chili with crackers. Thick, dark, beefy chili served in a styrofoam bowl with a sleeve of saltines on the side. Ground beef, kidney beans, tomato sauce, onion powder, and enough seasoning to turn the batch a deep brick red. It sat in a crock behind the counter and got ladled out a cup at a time. Some locations topped it with shredded cheese for a few cents extra. Most people just crushed their crackers into the bowl and stirred. It was a cold weather order. In northern states, it moved fast from October through March. Down south, it showed up year-round, but nobody wanted it in July. Number 17. The fish sandwich. A breaded square of white fish on a soft bun with tartar sauce and a leaf of lettuce. It looked almost identical to the one at every fast food chain, and it probably came from the same supplier. But the Kmart version had one advantage. You could eat it sitting down at a real table without walking across a parking lot. Fridays were the big day, especially in towns with a strong Catholic population during Lent. The cafeteria staff knew this and doubled the batch. By noon, the line for fish stretched past the popcorn machine. By 3, they were gone. Number 16. The hamburger platter. A quarter-pound patty on a sesame seed bun with lettuce, tomato, onion, pickles, and a pile of crinkle-cut fries on the side. This was the meal that anchored the entire cafeteria menu. The patty came frozen, cooked on the flat top, and served within minutes. The fries came out of a deep fryer that had been running all day. The whole platter sat on an oval paper plate, and you carried it on a brown tray to your seat. Teenagers on their lunch break ate it. Truck drivers stopping in for a battery ate it. Families split one between 2 kids and called it lunch. Nobody drove across town for it. But if you were already inside that Kmart and you were hungry, the hamburger platter was the safest bet on the board. Number 15. The patty melt. A thin beef patty between 2 slices of grilled rye bread with melted Swiss cheese and caramelized onions. Not every location had this one, but the ones that did treated it like a point of pride. The bread was buttered and pressed flat on the grill until it crisped on both sides, sealing the cheese in a layer that stretched when you pulled the halves apart. The onions were cooked low and slow, sweet and dark and slightly burned at the edges. It was a diner classic that had no business being in a department store. But there it was, on the menu next to nachos and fountain drinks. The people who knew about the patty melt never ordered anything else. The women who worked behind those cafeteria counters rarely showed up in any company photograph or annual report. They wore hairnets and polyester aprons and stood on rubber mats for 8 hours in front of equipment that was never the right temperature. They memorized the regulars. They knew the man in the brown jacket wanted his coffee black and his grilled cheese cut in half. They knew the woman who came every Thursday with her granddaughter always ordered the same soup. None of this was in their job description. None of it earned them a raise, but it turned a fluorescent lit counter in the middle of a department store into something that felt, for a few minutes at a time, like a place where someone knew your name. That vanished before the menu did. Number 14, the meatloaf dinner. A thick slice of ground beef meatloaf with a ribbon of ketchup glaze across the top, served with a scoop of mashed potatoes and a pile of green beans from a can. This was the plate that made the Kmart cafeteria feel like a real restaurant. Not because the meatloaf was exceptional, because the presentation was. A real plate, a real fork, and a meal with 3 distinct sections that looked like something your mother would have set on the table at 6 on a Wednesday. The meatloaf was baked in long pans in the back, sliced to order, and held in a warmer until someone pointed at it through the glass. The mashed potatoes came from a box, reconstituted with water and butter, and no one in the history of that cafeteria ever complained. The green beans sat in a steam tray, soft and salty, the kind that fall apart if you look at them too long. Retirees ordered the meatloaf dinner more than anyone else. It was the meal that reminded them of home without requiring them to cook. A widow who could not bring herself to make a full meatloaf for one person could walk into Kmart, sit down, and eat the same meal she used to serve a family of 5. She did not have to set the table. She did not have to wash the pan. She just ate. That is what made the meatloaf dinner more than a daily special. It was permission to sit down and be fed, even when you lived alone. Some locations listed it as the Blue Plate Special, a name borrowed from the old lunch counters of the 1940s. The price never climbed much, and for most of its run, it included a drink. Number 13, chicken fried steak. A thin piece of cube steak pounded flat, dredged in seasoned flour, and fried until the crust crackled when you cut into it. White gravy poured over the top and a side of mashed potatoes. This was a Southern staple that found its way into Kmart cafeterias nationwide, even in states where nobody had heard of it. The gravy was thick, peppery, and made from the drippings in the same pan. Nothing about it was light. Nothing about it was trying to be. You sat down with a chicken fried steak at Kmart, and you were not getting up quickly. It slowed the whole afternoon down. Number 12, Salisbury steak. A seasoned ground beef patty shaped into an oval, pan-fried and smothered in brown mushroom gravy. It came with mashed potatoes or rice and a roll on the side. The Kmart version sat in a steam tray, the gravy pooling around the edges, thick enough to hold a spoon at an angle. It looked like a TV dinner come to life. And for a lot of people, that was exactly the appeal. You recognized it. You knew what it would taste like before the first bite. There was comfort in that certainty. Salisbury steak showed up the same way every time, in every location, for years. Mushrooms optional, onion gravy in some stores. The patty always slightly too large for the plate, hanging over the edge like it did not quite fit. Number 11, beef stew. Chunks of beef, potatoes, carrots, celery, and onion in a thick brown gravy served in a deep bowl with a roll on the side. The stew pot went on early in the morning and stayed on all day. By lunchtime, the potatoes had started to dissolve into the broth, thickening it into something closer to gravy than soup. The beef was tender by then, falling apart when you pressed it with a spoon. It was not glamorous food. It was the kind of meal that made you forget you were sitting under fluorescent lights in a department store. Truck drivers ate it. Grandparents ate it. Stock clerks on break ate it, standing up because there were no open seats. The stew did not care who you were, same bowl for everyone. Number 10. Fried chicken dinner. 2 or 3 pieces of bone-in chicken, a biscuit, and coleslaw. The chicken was coated in seasoned flour and deep-fried in the same oil as the fish and the fries, which meant everything in that cafeteria had a faint taste of everything else. The biscuit was dense and warm, split open and buttered before it hit the tray. The coleslaw was sweet, heavy on the mayonnaise and the sugar, the way cafeteria coleslaw always is. It was not your grandmother's fried chicken, but it was fried chicken you could eat in a place where you also bought motor oil and a shower curtain, and on a busy Saturday, that combination felt oddly right. A department store kitchen knows something most restaurants never learn. The people walking through the door are not there to eat. They came for laundry detergent, or a birthday present, or school supplies, or just to walk the aisles because the house was too quiet. The kitchen's job is not to impress them. It is to catch them, to put a smell in the air that turns a chore into an outing, to offer a price so low that saying yes costs nothing. The best restaurant in town could not do what a Kmart cafeteria did, which was feed someone who had not planned to be fed. When the last counter was dismantled and carried out through the loading dock, that skill left with it. Number 9. The hot roast beef sandwich. 2 slices of roast beef on white bread, open-faced with brown gravy poured over the top and a scoop of mashed potatoes on the side. The gravy soaked into the bread until you could not tell where the bread ended and the meat began. You ate it with a knife and fork, not your hands, and that made it feel like a proper sit-down meal, even though you were eating off a cafeteria tray. The roast beef was sliced thin from a commercial roast cooked in the back, the kind that came sealed and went straight into the oven. It was not carved tableside. It was gray and tender and salty, and the gravy covered everything. This was the plate that older men ordered when they wanted something that felt like a Sunday dinner without waiting for Sunday. Widowers especially, men who had spent decades being cooked for and now stood in their own kitchens not knowing where to start. They came to Kmart for light bulbs or a garden hose, smelled the gravy from the cafeteria, and sat down for 20 minutes with a plate that felt like someone had made it for them. Some locations ran it as a daily special on certain days, and regulars planned their shopping around it. The line started before lunch, and by 1 in the afternoon, the roast was picked clean. Number 8. Macaroni and cheese. Elbow noodles baked in a cheese sauce with a browned crust on top, served in a square on the plate like a piece of casserole. The cheese sauce was industrial, orange, thick, vaguely sharp, and nothing like anything you could replicate at home. It came in a pan the size of a small table, baked in the morning, cut into portions, and held under a heat lamp. Kids pointed at it through the glass and there was never an argument. Parents said yes because it was cheap and filling and bought them 10 minutes of quiet. The crust was the best part. Everybody knew this. The people who got a corner piece with crust on 2 sides considered it a small victory. Number 7. Liver and onions. Thin slices of beef liver, pan-fried with a heap of caramelized onions, served with mashed potatoes and a side of canned green peas. This was the most polarizing item on the menu. People either ordered it every time or recoiled at the sight of it behind the glass. No middle ground. The liver was cooked on the flat top until firm on the outside and still faintly pink in the center. The onions were sweet and dark, cooked so long they turned into something closer to jam. The people who loved it tended to be the same ones who remembered eating it as children, back when liver was a weeknight staple and nobody questioned it. It was cheap protein, and it stayed on the Kmart menu long after most restaurants had quietly dropped it from theirs. Number 6. Chicken pot pie, a single-serving pie with a golden pastry crust filled with chicken, peas, carrots, and a thick cream sauce. It came in a foil tin, baked until the top puffed and cracked, and it was too hot to eat for the first 5 minutes. You sat there blowing on each forkful, watching the steam curl up from the center where the crust had split. The filling was dense, more sauce than chicken, and the vegetables were soft enough to dissolve on your tongue. It was a grandchild's idea of a perfect meal. Small, self-contained, with a lid made of pastry. Retirees ordered it because it reminded them of something they used to bake before the effort stopped being worth it. One pie, one person, one fork. The fluorescent lights in a Kmart cafeteria made everything look slightly worse than it was. The food was better than it appeared. The coffee was stronger than it smelled. The people were lonelier than they looked. A woman eating a bowl of soup at 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday was not there because she loved the soup. A man reading the sports section with an empty tray in front of him had finished eating 20 minutes ago. The cafeteria was a place where being alone in public was acceptable, where no waiter checked on you and no one expected you to leave. When those counters closed, the soup was easy to replace. The permission to sit was not. Number 5. The BLT. Bacon, lettuce, and tomato on toasted white bread with mayonnaise. The bacon was pre-cooked, sometimes crisp, sometimes limp enough to fold over itself. The lettuce was iceberg. The tomato was a single thick slice, pale in winter, red in summer. It was the simplest combination of ingredients, assembled in under a minute, and it sold all day long. The BLT was the meal people ordered when they could not decide. Not hungry enough for a platter, not satisfied with a cup of soup. 2 halves on a plate, cut corner to corner, with a pickle on the side. You could eat it with one hand and hold your shopping list in the other, and a lot of people did exactly that. Number 4. Bean soup with ham. Navy beans, chunks of smoky ham, and a broth thick enough to hold a spoon at an angle. It simmered in a deep pot on the back burner all morning and got ladled into styrofoam cups with a cornbread square on the side. The beans were soft, almost creamy, breaking apart when you stirred. The ham was salty and cut into uneven pieces. It was a meal you could buy with loose change, and it kept you full until dinner. In small towns, the Kmart bean soup had a quiet reputation. People mentioned it at church, they brought it up at the post office, and then one day the pot was not there anymore and nobody explained why. Number 3. Pot roast dinner. A thick slice of chuck roast, fork tender, and falling apart at the edges, served with roasted carrots, mashed potatoes, and a pool of dark gravy. The pot roast was the cafeteria's attempt at a Sunday dinner on a Wednesday afternoon. The meat was cooked low and slow in a commercial oven, hours before the first customer arrived. By the time it reached the steam tray, it needed no knife. You pressed the side of your fork against it, and it separated without resistance. The carrots were sweet from the drippings, and the potatoes soaked up whatever gravy remained. It was the most substantial hot meal on the menu, and it was still cheaper than a fast food combo. Regulars timed their visits for pot roast day. They knew the schedule. They came early, and when the serving pan ran empty, there were no second batches. You either got there in time, or you thought about it all afternoon. Number 2. The breakfast plate. Scrambled eggs, 2 strips of bacon, a slice of toast, and hash browns. Some locations added a sausage patty or a small cup of orange juice. The eggs were cooked on the flat top in bulk, pushed around with a metal spatula until they were dry and golden, the way cafeteria eggs always are. The bacon was thin and slightly overcooked. The hash browns were shredded, pressed flat, and fried until the edges turned dark. Kmart cafeterias that served breakfast opened their counters before the store was fully staffed. Retirees and early shoppers came in when the parking lot was still half empty. They ate slowly, read the paper, and watched the store come alive around them. It was the most affordable breakfast in town, and for some people, it was the only reason they left the house before 9. Number 1. The daily special. It changed every day. Monday might be meatloaf. Tuesday could be fried chicken. Wednesday was pot roast or pork chops. Thursday was fish. Friday depended on the region and who was working the kitchen that morning. The daily special was not a single dish. It was a promise. Walk in, sit down, and eat whatever they made today for less than you would spend on a bag of groceries. It was a handshake between the store and the customer, and both sides honored it for decades. The people who relied on it were not browsing. They were living on fixed incomes, eating one real meal a day, and choosing this one because it came with a table, a tray, and 10 minutes of being treated like a customer instead of a burden. When the cafeterias closed, no one replaced the daily special. Not the fast food chains, not the gas stations, not the dollar stores that moved into the empty buildings. A hot meal, a clean table, and no questions asked. Nothing like it has come back since. Cheese zombies were the mysterious bread pockets that appeared under different names in cafeterias across America throughout the decade. Soft bread dough was wrapped around American cheese slices, sealed at the edges, and baked until golden brown and puffy. When students bit through the tender crust, melted cheese stretched in long strings that required careful navigation to avoid dripping onto shirts. The name varied by region, with some schools calling them cheese pockets or cheesy bread, but the concept remained consistent. These handheld treats required no utensils and could be eaten while walking to recess, making them popular with children who wanted to maximize playground time. Cafeteria workers could prepare hundreds in advance, freezing unbaked zombies for later use when schedules demanded quick solutions. The combination of soft bread and gooey cheese created a textural experience that students remembered decades later. Cheese zombies proved that simple combinations executed well could achieve legendary status in lunch. Number 18. The corn dog on a stick. They came frozen, 80 to a case, the cornmeal batter already wrapped tight around a beef and pork frankfurter on a wooden skewer. The cafeteria oven baked them on parchment for 18 minutes. Then a kitchen worker tonged them onto trays 2 at a time. Mustard came in foil packets you tore open with your teeth. The wooden stick was the part most kids fought over after the dog was gone, because you could prop it in a milk carton and pretend it was a flag. Corn Dog Day was usually a Wednesday on the 4-week rotation, paired with baked beans and a peach half. The cafeteria version was always oven-baked, like a leaner cousin to keep the saturated fat under the federal cap. By 2014, the breading tested above the new sodium limits. Most districts pulled it from your menu and never put it back. Number 17. Spaghetti with meat sauce. The pasta came in 20-pound bags of dry strands, boiled in a 30-gallon kettle until a piece thrown at the wall stuck for 1 second and slid off. Kids who walked past the kitchen at 10 in the morning could smell the simmering tomato and oregano halfway down your hallway. The sauce was ground beef, canned tomato puree, garlic powder, oregano, and a pinch of sugar. A wire scoop fished portions of pasta out of the kettle, like a net pulling shells from surf, and a 6-ounce ladle dropped sauce on top. The serving line moved fast on Spaghetti Day. Kids with braces dreaded it and ate the garlic bread first. Sister Joan, in a Pittsburgh Catholic school, served the same plate every Tuesday for 19 years, with a sprinkle of dried parsley, because she said it made the sauce look fresher. The 2012 standards limited white pasta to 1 serving a week per child, and the recipe disappeared from most menus. Creamed corn made from actual cream and butter appeared in serving lines across American schools throughout the 1970s. Cafeteria workers opened industrial-sized cans of corn and transformed them into something rich by adding cream, butter, and sometimes a touch of sugar. The dish was silky, sweet, and satisfying in ways that plain corn never achieved. Children who might refuse vegetables often accepted creamed corn because it tasted almost like dessert. The fat content made it filling, and the preparation made it palatable to even the pickiest eaters. When dietary fat became the enemy, creamed corn disappeared from menus, replaced by plain kernels that children promptly ignored. The irony is that the cream and butter help children actually consume their vegetables while providing fat-soluble vitamin absorption. Removing the richness didn't make children healthier. It just made them eat fewer vegetables altogether. Fruit cocktail cake emerged as the dessert that proved cafeteria baking could compete with homemade versions. Canned fruit cocktail with its syrup was folded directly into yellow cake batter, creating pockets of sweet fruit throughout each slice. The cake baked up moist and tender, with the fruit settling slightly toward the bottom where it became jammy and caramelized against the pan. Some recipes called for a brown sugar and coconut topping that turned crunchy during baking, adding textural contrast to the soft crumb. Students looked forward to dessert days when fruit cocktail cake appeared, trading other items for extra squares of this surprisingly sophisticated sweet. The recipe used shelf-stable ingredients that schools could purchase in bulk and store indefinitely. Cafeteria bakers took pride in their fruit cocktail cakes, sometimes adding personal touches like nutmeg or vanilla. This cake represented the hidden talent within school kitchens and the genuine care that cafeteria workers brought to feeding children. Number 21. The Sloppy Joe Sandwich. The recipe ran in the 1988 USDA quantity cookbook on a single page. 25 pounds of ground beef, 4 cans of tomato sauce, brown sugar, vinegar, mustard, onion, and Worcestershire. The mixture simmered in a tilt skillet for 40 minutes, then went into a hotel pan with a pair of long-handled scoops. A kindergartner got 1 scoop on a hamburger bun. A 6th grader got 2. The bun soaked through by the time your tray reached the table, and the only way to eat it was with a fork. Many older Americans still call it a manwich, like the Hunt's brand on the home shelf. The sodium count on a single Sloppy Joe ran past 900 milligrams, which the 2012 standards capped well below. Cafeteria goulash bore little resemblance to authentic Hungarian cooking, but became beloved comfort food in school lunchrooms nonetheless. Elbow macaroni was combined with ground beef, diced tomatoes, tomato sauce, and a blend of seasonings that varied by region and cook. The mixture simmered together until the pasta absorbed the tomato flavors and the meat distributed evenly throughout the pot. What distinguished goulash from American chop suey was often regional tradition rather than recipe differences, with Midwestern schools particularly attached to the goulash name. Served in deep compartments on lunch trays, the dish provided complete nutrition in a single portion that required only a spoon. Cafeteria ladies could prepare massive batches that held well in steam tables for extended service periods. Students who initially resisted the unfamiliar appearance often became devoted fans after the first bite revealed familiar flavors. Cafeteria goulash taught children that foods with strange names could still taste like home. Number 13. Mashed potatoes with brown gravy. The potatoes came as dehydrated flakes in a 50-pound bag from the USDA commodity program, reconstituted with hot water, butter, and a splash of whole milk in a steam kettle. A wire whip on a long handle blended them in 3 minutes. The brown gravy came from a powdered base mixed with hot water in a smaller pot. A number 12 scoop dropped a perfect dome of potatoes on each tray like a small white hill, and a 4-ounce ladle covered it with gravy. The gravy ran down the slope and pooled in the corner of your compartment, and you would dip a tater tot in it before the corn even hit the tray. The 2012 standards did not pull mashed potatoes outright, but the powdered gravy disappeared because of the sodium count. The new gravy is thinner and tastes nothing like the version a 1986 kid remembers. Frankfurters with natural casings appeared regularly on cafeteria menus, served in soft white buns with mustard and sometimes relish. These hot dogs snapped when bitten, the natural casing giving way to seasoned beef and pork that tasted like actual meat. The nitrates used for preservation became controversial in later decades, with health authorities warning about cancer risks that subsequent research has largely failed to confirm. Those preservatives prevented bacterial growth and created the characteristic cured flavor that made hot dogs satisfying. School lunch programs served millions of these frankfurters weekly without the hand-wringing that would come later. The protein was real, the portions were appropriate, and children ate them willingly. Modern science has softened considerably on nitrate concerns, noting that vegetables contain far higher levels than processed meats and that the cancer risk was dramatically overstated. Turkey tetrazzini transformed Thanksgiving leftovers into a creamy casserole that students actually requested by name. Cubed turkey was folded into cooked spaghetti, along with sliced mushrooms and a rich sauce made from butter, flour, milk, and chicken broth. The mixture was poured into deep hotel pans, topped with Parmesan and breadcrumbs, then baked until golden and bubbling around the edges. The sauce became silky during baking, clinging to every strand of pasta and piece of turkey. What made this dish special was how it elevated ordinary ingredients into something almost elegant for a school cafeteria. The mushrooms added earthiness, the Parmesan contributed sharpness, and the breadcrumb topping provided textural contrast. November and December menus featured turkey tetrazzini regularly as schools worked through commodity turkey supplies. Children who typically avoided casseroles made exceptions for this one, scraping their trays clean. Turkey tetrazzini proved institutional cooking could achieve genuine deliciousness. Number 19. Rectangle cheese pizza. A frozen sheet of par-baked dough, 14 inches by 20, came stacked 12 to a case from a regional supplier. The kitchen ladled tomato sauce from a tilt skillet, spread it with the back of a serving spoon, then covered the whole sheet with 1.5 pounds of low-moisture mozzarella from a 5-pound bag. 8 minutes at 500 degrees, then the cook pulled the pan and cut it into 24 perfect rectangles with a long-handled wheel cutter. Each rectangle weighed about 4 ounces. In 1987, the line cost added up to 65 cents per serving, like a coin you could trade across the lunchroom. That was the cheapest hot entree the federal program allowed. The crust was thicker than a takeout pizza, almost focaccia, with a thin glaze of oil on the bottom from the parchment. The cheese cooled into a single rubbery layer that you could lift in one piece and eat folded over. Friday was rectangle pizza day in most American districts. Kids who hated the spinach side and pushed the orange wedge to one corner would still finish your rectangle pizza in 3 bites and ask whether seconds were left in the warming line. Lunch ladies learned to count the rectangles by the 3rd class through because the 8th grade boys came through last and would eat anything still warm. The recipe came from a 1988 USDA standardized cookbook distributed to school food service directors across all 50 states. Sister Mary Catherine, in a Cleveland parochial school, used the same recipe word for word, only doubled. The 2012 nutrition standards changed all of it. The dough now must be whole grain rich, the cheese must be reduced fat, the sodium per serving must come in under 480 milligrams. The original rectangle pizza carries closer to 700 milligrams in a single piece. What most people forget is that the cheese formula itself changed too, not just the crust. A modern version exists, made with cauliflower flour and reduced sodium cheese. But the texture and the smell are not the same. A child from 1986 would not recognize the slice on your tray. Tapioca pudding made from scratch with whole milk, eggs, and sugar was a cafeteria dessert that children actually requested rather than merely tolerated. The small pearl tapioca created a texture unlike any other pudding, slightly chewy spheres suspended in creamy vanilla custard. Cafeteria workers cooked it slowly, stirring constantly to prevent scorching while the tapioca pearls swelled and the mixture thickened. The eggs provided protein, the milk delivered calcium, and the sugar made children willing to consume both. When sugar and fat restrictions transformed school desserts, tapioca pudding was replaced with artificially sweetened alternatives that children recognized as diet food and rejected. The original version had been teaching children to appreciate texture and subtlety in ways that modern processed desserts never could. Tapioca pudding represented craft and patience, qualities that disappeared from school kitchens when efficiency and fear replaced genuine cooking. Swedish meatballs arrived in cafeterias during a decade when Scandinavian cuisine briefly captured American imagination. These smaller, rounder meatballs were made from a mixture of ground beef and pork, combined with breadcrumbs soaked in milk, creating an exceptionally tender texture. The secret was the creamy gravy made from pan drippings, beef broth, and sour cream that coated each meatball in pale brown sauce. Cafeteria versions often substituted evaporated milk for sour cream to reduce costs, but the result remained surprisingly delicious. Students received portions of meatballs swimming in gravy alongside egg noodles or mashed potatoes that soaked up every drop of sauce. The dish felt sophisticated compared to typical cafeteria fare, introducing children to flavors beyond standard American cooking. Teachers often requested extra portions, recognizing quality when they tasted it. Swedish meatballs showed that school kitchens could execute international recipes when given proper ingredients. Number 23. Salisbury steak with brown gravy. The patty was beef and breadcrumb, shaped in a press and frozen flat, then baked from frozen for 40 minutes in a deep hotel pan. The gravy came from a sealed pouch of mushroom and onion base, mixed with hot water and stirred with a wooden paddle long enough to coat the back of a ladle. Cafeteria recipes from the 1988 USDA quantity cookbook called for 1 pound of meat to feed 5 kids, which made Salisbury steak the cheapest hot entree on the line. You either loved it or refused to eat it, and the lunch ladies could tell by 3rd grade which side of that line you were on. The patty went on mashed potatoes with green beans alongside, the gravy ladled across both. By the time the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act took effect in 2012, Salisbury steak carried more sodium than the new rules allowed. The wooden paddles went into storage. Peanut butter sandwiches made with full-fat peanut butter and white bread were cafeteria staples that delivered protein and satisfaction in every bite. The peanut butter was thick, rich, and often contained added sugar that made it appealing to children who might otherwise reject protein sources. Cafeteria workers spread it generously on soft bread, sometimes adding grape jelly to create the classic combination that fueled generations. The fat content kept children satisfied through afternoon classes, preventing blood sugar crashes. When nutrition reformers targeted fat and sugar simultaneously, peanut butter became suspect despite being nutrient-dense. Schools switched to reduced-fat versions that tasted like cardboard and natural versions that children refused. Modern nutritionists have embraced full-fat peanut butter as an excellent protein source, acknowledging that the fats it contains are predominantly healthy and that moderate sugar improves palatability without causing harm. Creamed peas on toast represented the practical philosophy that defined Depression-era cooking carried forward into 70s cafeterias. Frozen peas were simmered in a white sauce made from butter, flour, and milk until the sauce thickened enough to coat a spoon. This creamy mixture was spooned generously over slices of white toast that had been lightly buttered and kept warm in steam tables. The toast absorbed the sauce gradually, creating layers of texture from crispy edges to soft, sauce-soaked centers. Some cafeterias added hard-boiled egg slices on top for additional protein and visual appeal. The dish looked simple, but delivered genuine comfort, especially on cold winter days when students needed warming from the inside. Teachers who remembered eating similar meals during their own childhoods often praised the cafeteria for keeping this tradition alive. Creamed peas on toast taught students that deliciousness didn't require complexity, and that vegetables could taste genuinely good when prepared with care. Number 8. Beef goulash. The cafeteria called it goulash, but it was closer to American chuck wagon stew. Ground beef browned with onion, mixed with elbow macaroni, canned tomato sauce, garlic powder, oregano, and a teaspoon of sugar. The whole batch came together in a single tilt skillet in under 30 minutes. A wire scoop dropped a generous portion into the largest compartment of your tray. Goulash was the entree the gym teacher ate alongside the children, like he was one of them, because it was the only thing on the line he liked. The part most people forget is that he told the lunch ladies it reminded him of the meal his own mother used to make on a coal stove in Ohio in 1947, and he said it loud enough that the 8th graders heard him and started calling it gym teacher stew. The lunch ladies kept making it the same way for 12 years. By 2014, the recipe failed 3 federal rules at once. The white pasta was capped, the ground beef ran above the saturated fat limit, and the canned tomato sauce pushed past the sodium cap. The gym teacher retired the same year. Cornbread made with bacon drippings carried the smoky richness of Southern cooking into cafeterias across the country. The rendered bacon fat was mixed into the cornmeal batter, creating a bread that was moist, flavorful, and deeply satisfying. Baked in cast-iron pans until the edges crisped and the top turned golden, this cornbread accompanied chili, beans, and barbecue with authentic regional flavor. The bacon drippings provided more than taste. They created a tender crumb that dry, fat-free versions could never achieve. Children ate this cornbread willingly because it tasted like real food rather than dietary punishment. When animal fats were banished from school kitchens, cornbread became dense and flavorless, something to be endured rather than enjoyed. The original recipe had represented centuries of American cooking tradition, knowledge that was discarded in favor of misguided nutritional theories that modern science has largely rejected. Salmon croquettes appeared on cafeteria menus when budget constraints required creative protein solutions during the middle of the month. Canned salmon was mashed with crushed saltine crackers, beaten eggs, and minced onion until the mixture held together enough to form into oval patties. These patties were dredged in cracker crumbs and fried until golden brown and crispy outside while staying moist and flaky within. The salmon flavor was mild and slightly sweet, nothing like fresh fish, but comforting in its own institutional way. Cafeteria ladies served them with tartar sauce and often paired them with creamed peas or macaroni salad. Children either loved or hated salmon croquettes, with little middle ground, but those who loved them remembered the crispy exterior giving way to tender fish inside. The recipe stretched expensive protein into affordable portions while providing genuine nutrition. Salmon croquettes represented practical cooking wisdom that prioritized feeding children well. Number 25. Tomato soup with a grilled cheese triangle. The soup came from a number 10 can of Campbell's condensed, thinned with whole milk in a steam kettle the size of a kitchen sink. The cheese was a half slice of American on white bread, grilled in butter on a flat top until your bread shattered when you bit into it. Lunch ladies cut every sandwich on the diagonal because the triangle dipped cleaner than the square. The ladle held 4 ounces, served into a 5-ounce bowl with a paper napkin folded under it. You dipped one corner, then another, and learned the order by 2nd grade. Today, the same lunch would fail 4 federal rules at once. Whole milk in the soup, white bread, butter on the griddle, and canned sodium together push past 740 milligrams. And whole grain bread now carries the sandwich. The original belongs to memory. White bread rolls fresh from the oven accompanied nearly every hot lunch served in 1970s cafeterias. These soft, pillowy rounds of refined flour were everything whole grain advocates would later condemn, yet they provided calories, comfort, and carbohydrates that active children burned through by afternoon recess. Cafeteria workers baked them on site in many districts, filling hallways with aromas that made children actually anticipate lunch. The bread was tender, slightly sweet, and perfect for soaking up gravy or spreading with butter. When whole grain mandates arrived, schools replaced these beloved rolls with dense brown alternatives that children threw away in alarming quantities. The white bread had been doing its job, delivering energy and satisfaction to children who needed both. Modern nutritional science acknowledges that refined grains in moderate amounts pose no particular health threat to active, growing children. American chop suey was the cafeteria's answer to Italian-Chinese fusion decades before fusion cuisine became trendy. Elbow macaroni was boiled until tender, then mixed with seasoned ground beef browned with onions and green peppers in massive tilting skillets. Tomato sauce and a blend of spices, including oregano and garlic powder, brought everything together into a hearty one-pot meal that could serve hundreds of students. The dish had nothing to do with actual Chinese cooking, but its name suggested exotic origins that made it seem more interesting than simple beef and pasta. Schools across New England particularly embraced this recipe, serving it weekly throughout fall and winter months. The combination of protein, starch, and vegetables in one serving made it nutritionally complete and easy to portion. Cafeteria ladies could prepare enormous batches in advance and keep them warm in steam tables for hours without quality loss. American chop suey was cafeteria efficiency at its finest. Number 11. Macaroni and cheese. The neon yellow color was as much a part of the dish as the noodles, and every American kid in the 1980s knew the exact shade. The recipe came from the 1988 USDA cookbook. 18 pounds of dry elbow pasta, a gallon of whole milk, 2 pounds of butter, and 4 pounds of processed American cheese cut into cubes. The batch baked in a deep hotel pan for 40 minutes until the top crusted into a thin orange sheet, like a small geological layer. A square serving spoon cut portions about the size of a coffee mug. You ate it with a fork and chased the noodles around the plate. The 2012 rules cut the saturated fat allowance per meal to under 10% of total kilocalories. The cheese in the original recipe pushed past 16%. The new mac and cheese is made with reduced fat cheddar and whole grain noodles, and the color is closer to ivory than neon. Beef tallow French fries represented a golden age of cafeteria cooking that health reformers dismantled with devastating efficiency. Those fries emerged from deep fryers filled with rendered beef fat, a cooking medium that McDonald's itself used until 1990. The exterior shattered with each bite while the interior remained fluffy and potato pure. School cooks received blocks of beef tallow from suppliers who understood that this was simply how frying was done. The fat created a crispy exterior that vegetable oils could never replicate, sealing the potato and preventing grease absorption. When the anti-saturated fat movement reached its peak, schools switched to partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, which we now know contained trans fats far more dangerous than anything in beef tallow. Those original fries were actually the healthier option. The tallow produced superior texture, better flavor, and posed no cardiovascular risk that modern science can identify. The switch to vegetable shortening created the actual health crisis. Cheeseburger pie turned the beloved American hamburger into a casserole that could feed entire classrooms from a single pan. Ground beef was browned with onions and seasoned with salt, pepper, and Worcestershire sauce, then spread across the bottom of baking dishes. A simple batter made from eggs, milk, flour, and baking powder was poured over the meat layer, creating a soft bread-like topping as it baked. Sliced American cheese was layered on top during the final minutes of baking, melting into a golden blanket that tied everything together. The result was somewhere between a burger, a biscuit, and a pot pie, satisfying multiple cravings simultaneously. Cafeteria ladies loved this recipe because it required no individual assembly and could be sliced into perfect portions. Students loved it because it delivered all the flavors they craved from cheeseburgers without the mess. Cheeseburger pie represented the creative problem-solving that defined school cafeteria cooking. Number 14. The peanut butter bar with chocolate frosting. The bar was one of the most beautiful objects a 1980s cafeteria ever produced, and every child knew it. The recipe lived on a single index card in the lunch lady's binder. 1 pound of butter, 3 cups of peanut butter, 4 cups of powdered sugar, 6 cups of graham cracker crumbs, all mixed by hand in a stainless bowl the size of a baby bath. The mixture was pressed into a half-sheet pan, half an inch thick, then topped with melted milk chocolate and butter, smoothed flat with the back of a long spatula, and chilled in the walk-in for 2 hours. The lunch lady cut it into 36 perfect rectangles with a knife dipped in hot water between every cut. A single bar weighed nearly 3 ounces and tasted like a Reese's cup pressed into a brick. Kids traded their orange wedges, their carrots, their entire entree for an extra peanut butter bar. A second grader in Akron once kept hers in your lunchbox for 3 days and rationed it in pencil eraser-sized bites because she did not believe she would ever taste anything that good again. The peanut butter bar appeared on the 4-week rotation exactly twice a month, and on the morning the bar was on your menu, attendance in some elementary schools rose by 7%. Older lunch ladies were said to bake an extra pan and tuck it into the warming oven for the teachers, because the teachers traded for them too. The bar had everything a 1980s child wanted in a single object. It was sweet, it was rich, it was salty under the chocolate, and it filled a small hand. And then in 2014, the new federal Smart Snacks rule capped your dessert serving at 200 kilocalories and limited the sugar to 35% of total weight. The peanut butter bar carried 460 kilocalories and well over half its weight in sugar. It was pulled from cafeteria lines in most American districts within 18 months. The recipe survives only in church cookbooks and in PTA fundraisers, and in the memories of the kids who walked past the dessert window in 1986 and saw the chocolate gleaming under the lights like a window in a candy store. Mashed potatoes made with real butter and whole cream were the comfort food backbone of countless cafeteria meals throughout the decade. Cafeteria workers peeled potatoes by the bushel, boiled them until tender, and mashed them with generous amounts of butter and cream until they reached that perfect consistency. The result was rich, smooth, and satisfying in ways that instant potatoes or reduced-fat versions could never match. Children who rejected other vegetables eagerly consumed mashed potatoes because they tasted genuinely good. The fat content helped absorb nutrients from the meal and provided lasting satiety. When dietary fat became the enemy, schools switched to instant potatoes made with margarine and skim milk, creating something that resembled wallpaper paste more than food. The original preparation had been nutritionally superior, delivering potassium, vitamin C, and the satisfaction that kept children from seeking snacks between meals. Fiestada Mexican pizza introduced countless American children to flavors beyond their family dinner tables throughout the 70s. These hexagonal treats featured a crispy, tortilla-like crust topped with seasoned ground beef, refried beans, and melted cheese that turned bubbly under commercial broilers. The beef was seasoned with cumin, chili powder, and garlic, creating an aroma that announced Mexican Pizza Day throughout school hallways. Unlike authentic Mexican food, fiestadas were designed for institutional efficiency, arriving frozen and requiring only reheating before service. Students loved the crispy edges that shattered when bitten and the stretchy cheese that connected each piece to their mouths. Some cafeterias added shredded lettuce and diced tomatoes after baking, while others kept them simple. The hexagonal shape made them distinctive and memorable, setting them apart from rectangular pizza squares served on other days. Fiestada represented the cafeteria's attempt to offer variety through food. Number 16, chicken nuggets with dipping sauce. They came in 5-pound bags of frozen breaded white meat, 28 nuggets per pound, baked on parchment-lined sheet pans for 12 minutes at 450 degrees. Your dipping sauce was barbecue or honey mustard from a half-gallon jug, portioned into 1-ounce paper soufflé cups. 5 nuggets per tray for elementary, 7 for middle school. Chicken Nugget Day was the most predictable attendance day on the cafeteria calendar because almost no kid stayed home or brought a sack lunch that morning. The dinosaur-shaped version most adults remember today did not appear in school cafeterias until 1993. Through the 1980s, the nuggets were always the same uniform oval, slightly puffed at the seam, like a leaf folded once where the breading press closed. The 2012 sodium and saturated fat rules forced manufacturers to reformulate the breading. The crunch is softer and the salt is missing. Full-fat cottage cheese in individual cups was a protein staple that appeared alongside canned peaches and crackers on countless 1970s lunch trays. The curds were creamy, slightly tangy, and substantial enough to constitute a meal component rather than an afterthought. Children received the same full-fat version their parents ate at home because nobody had yet decided to remove the fat that made cottage cheese palatable. The texture was rich rather than watery, and the flavor was mild enough for children, while satisfying enough to constitute real nutrition. When low-fat versions replaced the original, cottage cheese became something children recognized as diet food and promptly rejected. The full-fat version had been delivering protein, calcium, and genuine satisfaction in perfect balance. Removing the fat destroyed both the taste and the nutritional completeness that made it worth serving in the first place. Hamburger gravy over mashed potatoes was the meal that proved cafeteria ladies understood comfort food better than any restaurant chef. Ground beef was browned in massive tilting skillets. Then flour was sprinkled over the meat and stirred until it absorbed the fat and juices. Milk or beef broth was added gradually while stirring constantly until a thick, creamy gravy formed around every crumble of meat. This savory mixture was ladled generously over mounds of mashed potatoes made from flakes reconstituted with butter and milk. The combination created a meal that satisfied on the deepest level, warming children from the inside out on cold school days. Students who cleaned their trays often returned for seconds when available, and the smell of browning beef drew them toward the lunch line before the bell rang. The recipe required minimal ingredients but maximum attention to technique, as lumpy gravy was considered unacceptable by proud cafeteria veterans. Hamburger gravy represented honest institutional cooking at its finest. Number 10. Hot Dog Day. The Frankfurter was beef and pork, 6 inches long, served in a soft white bun with a paper boat under it to catch the drip. 2 foil packets of mustard and 1 of ketchup came on the side. Hot Dog Day was every other Thursday in most American districts, and the line moved faster on Hot Dog Day than any other day of the month because your tray took 30 seconds to plate. You could open both packets, squeeze the mustard down the length of the dog like a yellow seam, and finish the whole sandwich in 4 bites. By 2014, the federal sodium standards had cut the cafeteria Frankfurter from your menu because the cured meat carried too much sodium per ounce. A few schools held on for a year or two with a turkey hot dog substitute, but the kids did not bite. The hot dog tray was retired. Cinnamon rolls with real cream cheese frosting appeared on breakfast trays as rewards for children who arrived at school ready to learn. These spiraled pastries were made with butter, sugar, and cinnamon, then topped with frosting made from actual cream cheese, butter, and powdered sugar. The combination of warm, spiced dough and cool, tangy frosting created a sensory experience that made early mornings bearable. Cafeteria bakers often made them from scratch, filling hallways with aromas that drew children toward the serving line. The sugar provided quick energy, while the fat and protein from the cream cheese offered sustained fuel. When breakfast became a battleground for nutrition reformers, cinnamon rolls were replaced with whole grain alternatives that children threw away untouched. The original versions had been achieving their purpose, getting calories and nutrients into children who might otherwise skip breakfast entirely. Shepherd's pie arrived on cafeteria menus as a clever way to stretch ground beef while incorporating vegetables children might otherwise refuse. A layer of seasoned ground beef mixed with peas, carrots, and corn formed the base in large hotel pans. Mashed potatoes were spread thickly on top, then the surface was roughened with fork tines to create peaks that would brown attractively during baking. The assembled pies baked until the potato topping turned golden and the meat mixture bubbled up around the edges. Each portion delivered protein, starch, and vegetables in a single serving that satisfied both nutritional requirements and childhood appetites. The crispy potato peaks became the most sought-after bites, with students strategically cutting their portions to maximize crunchy edges. Cafeteria workers appreciated how shepherd's pie made vegetables acceptable to picky eaters who would reject the same peas and carrots served separately. This dish represented the institutional kitchen's mastery of disguising nutrition as pure comfort. Number 9. Tuna noodle casserole. A kettle of cooked egg noodles, 3 cans of cream of mushroom soup, 4 cans of chunk-light tuna, frozen peas, and a handful of crushed potato chips on top for the crunch. The pan baked for 30 minutes until the chips browned. A square serving spoon cut portions about the size of a baseball. The smell of cream of mushroom and tuna filled the cafeteria from the first lunch period to the last, like a damp blanket on the air. Kids either loved it or refused to sit near anyone eating it, and the seating in your cafeteria reorganized itself by 10 in the morning on tuna noodle days. A grandmother in New Jersey made the same recipe at home from the same commodity ingredients because the USDA distributed the same cans to schools and to food banks. The 2012 standards reduced canned cream soup in school recipes because of the sodium. The casserole was quietly retired by the 2015 school year. Chicken fried steak with country gravy represented the pinnacle of Southern cafeteria cooking brought into schools across the region and beyond. Thin beef cutlets were tenderized, breaded in seasoned flour, and fried until golden before being draped in cream gravy made from pan drippings. This dish was unashamedly rich, delivering protein, fat, and carbohydrates in proportions that kept children focused through afternoon classes. Cafeteria workers took pride in their gravy, whisking flour into rendered fat until it thickened into something between sauce and sustenance. The smell alone drew children to the serving line with genuine anticipation. The dish disappeared when fat and sodium restrictions transformed school menus into exercises in culinary deprivation. Modern research suggests that occasional consumption of such traditional preparations poses no meaningful health risk to active children who burn calories throughout the day. Peanut butter bars satisfied the after-lunch sweet tooth while delivering protein that helped students focus through afternoon classes. A base layer of oats, flour, brown sugar, and butter was pressed into sheet pans and baked until golden. Creamy peanut butter was mixed with powdered sugar and softened butter to create a thick filling spread across the warm crust. The final layer of chocolate chips melted over warm peanut butter created a glossy, dark topping that firmed as it cooled. Cut into small squares, these bars were rich enough that modest portions satisfied completely. The combination of textures made eating them an experience requiring attention and appreciation. Schools could prepare massive batches that held well throughout lunch service without refrigeration. The ingredients were affordable and the recipe forgiving. allowing even inexperienced bakers to produce consistent results. Peanut butter bars became trading currency in cafeterias, with students offering milk cartons and fruit cups for extra squares. Real butter pats in foil wrappers accompanied nearly every hot roll, cornbread square, and biscuit that emerged from 1970s cafeteria kitchens. These small rectangles of churned cream represented thousands of years of human nutrition science compressed into convenient individual servings. Children peeled back the wrapper and spread golden fat onto warm bread without anyone suggesting this was dangerous. The butter melted into every crevice, adding richness and satisfaction to meals that might otherwise feel institutional. When margarine replaced butter in the name of heart health, schools unknowingly introduced trans fats that proved genuinely harmful. The butter had been protecting children all along, providing vitamin A, vitamin K2, and healthy saturated fats that growing bodies needed. Modern nutritionists have reversed decades of butter demonization, acknowledging that this whole food never deserved its villainous reputation. Corn dog nuggets were the bite-sized treats that made hot dogs exciting again for students tired of the same old frankfurters and buns. Hot dog pieces were dipped in sweet cornmeal batter and deep-fried until the coating puffed up golden and crispy around each morsel. The batter had a slight sweetness that complemented the salty, savory hot dog within, creating a flavor combination children found irresistible. Served with packets of mustard and ketchup for dipping, corn dog nuggets disappeared from trays faster than almost any other cafeteria offering. Their small size made them perfect for little hands and eliminated the mess of traditional corn dogs that dripped batter and condiments. Cafeteria workers could fry large batches quickly, keeping up with demand during busy lunch periods. The nuggets stayed warm and crispy longer than full-sized corn dogs, maintaining quality throughout extended service. Corn dog nuggets represented the cafeteria's ability to reimagine familiar foods into formats that better served institutional needs. Fish sticks fried in animal fat delivered crispy, flaky seafood to children who might otherwise never consume fish at all. These breaded rectangles emerged from deep fryers filled with beef tallow or lard, their coating golden and crunchy, while the fish inside remained moist and tender. The animal fat created a superior crust that sealed in moisture and prevented the greasiness that vegetable oils often produced. Children who claimed to hate fish eagerly consumed fish sticks because the preparation made them accessible and genuinely delicious. The omega-3 fatty acids in the fish combined with the stable saturated fats in the cooking medium to create a nutritionally complete protein source. When schools switched to vegetable oils containing trans fats, they unknowingly created a less healthy product while also degrading the taste and texture. Those original fish sticks had been achieving something remarkable, making seafood acceptable to the most reluctant young eaters. Chicken-fried steak patties brought Southern comfort food traditions into school cafeterias across the country during the decade. Thin beef patties were dredged in seasoned flour, dipped in egg wash, and coated again before being fried until golden brown and crispy. The double coating created a substantial crust that shattered satisfyingly when cut with the side of a fork. White pepper gravy made from pan drippings, flour, and milk was ladled generously over each patty, transforming them into something approaching restaurant quality. Students learned to pour gravy over their mashed potatoes as well, creating a unified plate of comfort. The patties arrived pre-formed and frozen, making preparation manageable for cafeteria staff who simply needed to bread and fry them fresh. Even children who claimed to dislike beef often made exceptions for chicken-fried steak, won over by the crispy coating and creamy gravy. This dish proved that proper technique could elevate humble ingredients into something genuinely special. Canned fruit cocktail in heavy syrup was dessert disguised as nutrition, and cafeterias served it proudly. Those cubed peaches, pears, grapes, and cherries floated in sugared liquid that made fruit acceptable to children who might otherwise reject it entirely. The syrup was thick, sweet, and genuinely delicious, transforming institutional fruit into something children requested rather than avoided. Lunch ladies spooned generous portions into small bowls, and children ate every bite. When sugar became the new dietary villain, Heavy syrup disappeared in favor of fruit packed in juice or water that children largely refused to finish. The original version delivered vitamins, fiber, and the simple pleasure of sweetness that made school lunches bearable. Modern thinking suggests that moderate sugar consumption, particularly attached to actual fruit, poses minimal health risk compared to the processed alternatives children consume today. Number 22. Tater tots. They arrived in a 15-pound box from Oreita, frozen into perfect cylinders the size of a child's thumb. The cafeteria oven held 6 sheet pans at once, 400 degrees for 20 minutes. No flipping required. A scoop and a half went on each tray, salted from a steel shaker the lunch lady refilled every morning before the bell. Tater tots were the side that made every other side acceptable. You would push the corn around the compartment and eat the tots first, then dip the Salisbury steak in ketchup and eat it second, then drink the milk last. The pattern was as fixed as the bell schedule. Modern cafeteria fryers have been removed from most American elementary schools under the saturated fat rules, but the tots survive in some districts only as baked oven varieties, drier and lighter. The crispness is gone. One of those meals ever won an award or made a magazine cover. They showed up under heat lamps on paper plates in the middle of department stores, and people ate them with plastic forks while their shopping carts waited by the condiment station. But those cafeteria counters fed families, retirees, truckers, and stock clerks who all sat at the same bolted-down tables without anyone caring who they were or how long they stayed. If one of those meals just crossed your mind, make something close to it this week. Sit at the table. Use a real plate. And if you remember a Kmart cafeteria dish that did not make this list, put it in the comments. Hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves.